But the thing that sort of really makes me think larger, and this is something you and I were talking about when we were socializing, is what's the sort of large way to think about the ascendancy of Donald Trump? And, one thing I've been thinking about is I feel like Lewis and Clark, like you're going to walk all the way across an entire continent, but we're just right now like at the Catskills.
Right.
We've just come over the Catskills and we're like, oh my God, look, this is huge. Like there's just endless amounts of area to discover. This morning I got an email about, and this is not to trivialize people losing their Social Security and their Medicare and race and all the things that are coming our way at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But just think about this. I got an email this morning about weapons proliferation related to wildlife poaching in Africa, specifically rhinoceros and elephant poaching. And this is like a big problem because it relates to wildlife, but it also relates to poverty and lawlessness and the proliferation of weapons into rangers and just outright murdering, in these countries like Tanzania and Mozambique and South Africa. And so this is like something I've been looking at to report on. The Trump boys went and hunted elephants and had there's photographs of them online with killing elephants. So you just have to stop for a minute and think, okay, well, so what does that mean? Like, how is that recreational? And these are now like the first sons.
Right. I mean, it's Uday and Kusei. I mean, we joke that way, but on some level, there's like a lawlessness. I don't even know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that's sort of the way I feel like we're entering into an age where there's no norms. So there's no, or the norms have been blown away. I mean, he's going to go in, and as far as we know now, he's not going to divest from anything. And the idea that
that's the least of it. That's the personal enrichment piece of it. It's just think about look, I'm a journalist and I'm going to have to cover this over the medium and long term. So I need to be careful to keep my mind open and my reporting muscles ready to be contradicted and be surprised. And so, I'm like, I don't want to come across as like I'm in the bag, like cheering against Trump or all the people that follow him. But, I'm a person with a set of beliefs. I think that the personal enrichment stuff of it is kind of like a false flag thing. I think it's like this is the decline and fall, right? This is how empires change. They change with these little seemingly incidental things, with the FBI director and Russia and a terrible candidate in Hillary Clinton, and seemingly just a few thousand votes. But I think that they signify something much bigger underneath, like the way the changing of the gears of this society, or the grinding of the gears. And this is the decline of white majority. The white majority. This is the decline, probably, of basically truth.
Right. Well, but
I don't. That's the decline of law and order in some ways, or at least the version that we've understood. You and I have kids the same age, right, Sam?
Yes.
Pretty much?
Yes.
Our children have never experienced, I know I have, after 9/11 and through that period of the Iraq War, like a time when the newspaper was just upside down.
Right.
Where everything was backwards, where just lying was not just fine, it was what was done by Colin Powell and George Bush and Dick Cheney. Just lying was part of the discourse. Like, of course you're lying. That's what you do.
And there was a sort of a broad sort of, there didn't seem to be anybody. I mean, frankly, I felt that way after the Bush v. Gore decision, which was like, this is insane. Like, and no legal expert, if you go back and nobody thought that the Supreme Court would even take that case. And the idea.
Did you come across this little tidbit from? I was reading about this electoral college thing. The movement to try to get the electors to do the Hamiltonian thing and not let.
Yep.
And there was a little aside in there. Apparently, at the time of Bush v. Gore, the Republicans, Tom DeLay in particular, was preparing an electoral college, it's a coup d'etat. If the Supreme Court had gone the other way, they were ready, or had not taken the case and the recount had come through for Gore, they were ready to do the very thing that everyone now would say would be a nuclear bomb, which points, I think, to the kind of bewildered look on Democrats' faces. I mean, do you remember during the debates when Trump said, you'd be in jail if I was president or something like that?
Right.
And Hillary Clinton goes, I remember she just said, wow. And it was like, shouldn't you be a little more prepared than wow?
Or the reaction shouldn't just be like, whoa, look at that guy. It should be like, oh my God, this is theoretically half of the country, or to bring it to people's attention. Yes.
I mean, this idea that it was, that she should be president because he's, a bad guy. That's like the worst argument I've ever. Well, you saw what happened.
Right. But I guess, I mean, that period after the Bush v. Gore, where it just all of a sudden, the media, everything sort of fell in line on some level. I mean, there was a slow.
Well, how about this one? Here's go ahead. Sorry.
Well, but there was a slow, I think, like degradation. Like the Newsweek on September 13th, the cover was supposed to be about the riff in the Supreme Court, coming 9 months later, and then of course 9/11 happens, and that's really I mean, that's when where we cross a certain threshold. But my point, I guess, with the sort of the emoluments thing and him enriching himself is less about the impact of that in a practical speaking, but symbolically, the idea that that's like the first full-on, complete disregarding of something that we have all taken for granted, which is the president is different from, Ferdinand Marcos, let's say, or, somebody who's going to come in and just use the presidency to enrich himself. And then everything about the way the country runs is spun out from that. Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Subscribe.